Feeling lost in the noise of social media? INSPO cuts through the clutter, connecting you directly with real insights from real experts and industry leaders. It's a new social network dedicated to knowledge sharing, industry insights, and thought leadership. Get the latest from top minds in your field, or build your own thought leadership portfolio on INSPO. Already trusted by thousands of professionals worldwide, be part of the conversation and download INSPO Experts today on the App Store or visit www.inspo.expert.
Welcome back to the Take a Chance on You podcast, hosted by me, Alexandra Forsyth. Today, I am so excited to be passing the mic to Louis Watkins, who is the founder and CEO of Clear for Men. This is a brand which is empowering men to take 5. Louis is on a mission to break down the stigma and barriers surrounding mental health for men, encouraging them to take 5. And he has a flagship product, which is called the Take 5 Facial Cleanser. So Louis, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm good. You're excited to be here?
Yes, I am really excited. Yes, really looking forward to it.
I'm really excited to talk today. This is quite a different episode. I've spoken to guests across all industries, not just cybersecurity where I'm from, but talking about mental health and vulnerability is quite exciting. So I really want to dive into that with you today. And what might be quite nice for the listeners is for you to just give an introduction into who you are, your brand, your journey, because I've heard the journey and I think it's fantastic and what you've achieved.
Thank
so I
you.
think it'd be great for you to go through that.
Yeah, so I'm the founder of Clear for Men. It's a skincare brand that's trying to break the stigma around mental health one bottle at a time. And the mission is to encourage men to take 5 every day. I feel like life's 100 miles an hour and we're trying to juggle so many different things, but when are we actually giving ourselves time to take 5 and pause and prioritize ourselves, because we are our most important asset. And I want to be that role model that I wish I had when I was younger, that person that reminds me that it's okay to talk about how I feel and it's not weak to show my vulnerability, and showing the importance of looking after ourselves and prioritizing ourselves. And every order that we get, we donate 15% of profits to mental health charities as well.
I know I did see that when I was doing a bit of research. I think that's fantastic. The proceeds go to charity as well, which not all brands do, if I'm honest, in the beginning. It's obviously resources, it's time intensive, but I think that's fantastic. But going right back, obviously your journey before skincare, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so before I started Clear for Men, or before Clear for Men even became a thought in my head, I had finished my A-levels in 2019 and I got an apprenticeship on the railway. So I worked at this company for 5 years before being made redundant in December 2024. Really enjoyed my time initially to begin with. It was really, really good. I felt as though I'd found a real good spark. I was in a really good headspace. I had a lot of good things going on. Like, personal life was great. Career seemed to be going well. I was looking after myself. Like, everything was just falling into place. And I really felt as though I'd set myself up for what would have been a really good career. And then obviously with COVID and lockdowns, it really took a turn for a lot of aspects of my life and for so many people as well. And I was full-time in college at the time. So I was full-time in college in 2019 to 2020. Obviously the college is closed in the March, and it meant that I was home all the time, not really doing much college work. So therefore, like, career sort of started to become a bit stagnant. Didn't really know anyone in the business that I was working in, because obviously I was full-time in college. So didn't really know anyone there. So again, there wasn't really communication on that front either. So I wasn't really working. I wasn't really learning. The whole premise of an apprenticeship is to work and learn. And I wasn't getting that. And that's not down to them at all. It's just purely down to the situation. But it made me feel really stagnant, and it was a shame, really, because I'm always someone that really likes to be doing something and learning and trying to improve myself in different ways. I found myself feeling very burnt out from the fact that I wasn't doing a lot in my career. Felt quite lost. I felt as though the passion that I had to begin with and really wanted to progress, I think it sort of faded away, and it upset me quite a bit, really, because I felt as though I'd found something that was good, and it just sort of like went away over time. But I found myself feeling quite isolated and quite lonely, led to me feeling quite anxious about what the future was going to look like, felt anxious towards like what my life was going to look like. I didn't know what I wanted then at that point. And it just led to a lot of burnout. And the first time that I experienced any sort of physical form of anxiety sort of came from that feeling really in like 2021, 22, 23. Those 3 years I started to experience anxiety. And I think a lot of it came down to the fact that I really didn't know where my life was sort of going at that point. And I felt very lonely, didn't know how to talk about it. I eventually started to meet the people I was working with, but again, didn't really know how to speak about how I was feeling. Quite vulnerable, talking about it to my friends and my family because I didn't want to worry them. So I sort of became quite a shell of myself. I used to be quite like bubbly and outgoing, and I just sort of became a shell of myself overnight kind of thing. And I think that worried a lot of people. My whole thing behind it the entire time was I knew there was so many other people that were also feeling the same way. So I got my head is like I've always loved helping people and trying to make a difference. And even if I was to go back another step in my sort of life before I started on the railway, I had a job as a sales associate in a shoe company, and I just loved helping people. I always loved it, whether it was the people I worked with or whether it was like the customers, I suppose. Just always loved to put a smile on people's faces. And what I found was, because I didn't have that same feeling anymore, because it had been taken from so many of us, I felt lost. For me, I kept reminding me like I do want to do something that just brings joy to people and helps others. And that's sort of where the seed was planted for Clear for Men, really. But that's sort of like the backstory of where I've come from, I suppose.
I think absolutely. I mean, it made me quite emotional listening to everything that you said, 'cause it's just so vulnerable to talk about burnout, talk about anxiety, talk about feeling lonely. We all go through so many challenges in life. And actually, you raised a really interesting point. It's not that you're burnt out because you're somewhat stressed about your job in terms of the workload. You're burnt out because you're not being fulfilled through the work, because your mindset is very purpose driven. And that's with a lot of high intellectual individuals. They are driven by that need to help other people, lead with empathy. And it obviously has been shown through the different roles you've had, going back to that sales associate job. If I think I can relate to it so much because I used to waitress for years in hospitality right at the beginning of my journey prior to the workforce in cybersecurity. And I didn't know it then really, but I used to love attending to customers, taking orders, delivering food and drinks, working with a team, and that team atmosphere as well for collaboration. So I think it's so admirable that you shared your story, and it's so remarkable to see the outcome. I know you might not see it so much yourself because you know you've got such a long way to go and there's certain milestones that you want to reach, but actually you built this brand off a very authentic mindset that you have and a very authentic journey, and now you want to help other men see that vulnerability is cool. And I've said this, it's cool to talk about mental health. Why aren't we talking about it more? It's 2025. If you think about social media as well, I could talk about it forever.
Yeah, it's right. And like even so much as like the other day, I got really upset out of nowhere the other day. Like, you're talking literally 2 days ago, like Tuesday evening, I just cried loads. And it was that feeling of like the weight off my shoulders after getting it out was like no other feeling. And I think sometimes that's the feeling sometimes where, and I had that before, where like you almost feel numb to any pain or anything because you do feel as though if you suppress it for so long, I think that's where the numbness comes. And for me, I felt upset. I let it out, and I felt genuinely 10 times better for getting it. And it just goes to show like how important it is to talk about normalizing getting upset and talking about do you know what I mean? And talking about how we really feel, because I think it's important to. I think it's so, and like you said, like having people that we can talk to and normalize it. I just think it's so important. I really do.
No, absolutely. I think definitely, because mental health, I mean, I don't like to label things, but it's normal to go through just challenges in life and to, as you say, want to let it out and feel relief after having either a conversation or a cry. Or I know some people, they have certain hobbies that they go and do to release that stress, maybe running or maybe rock climbing, or just something that helps them to get into a better frame of mind to take on tomorrow's challenges. But I also think I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I really believe in bringing your whole self to work or bringing your whole self to just life in general.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean putting your baggage onto somebody else. So that doesn't mean walking into work and saying, I've had a crap night's sleep, I've had an argument with this person this morning, and I just feel like rubbish. It doesn't mean doing that. It just means being able to, as you say, confide in others, have conversations, and it just be a bit easier.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. And I think that is such an important thing to be able to do, because I think like there's been so many times in my life in particular where I felt like I can't confide in someone, and it has really eaten at me. And I think growing up, I've only ever known two emotions really, and that is you're either happy or you're angry. It's like it's not, for me, it was never, I think just as a whole, I think like I never spoke about my vulnerabilities. I never spoke about, and I think like that made it feel as
I'm the
though,
same.
yeah, and it's a hard one, isn't it? So for me, I was like, I don't want to just talk. I don't want to just get angry. I want to try and figure out how I can almost become a better person and learn more about who I am and what it is that I need, and how I can talk about it in a way that can, because I agree with you. I think like bringing your whole self to everything that you do, I think is so important. And I'm so passionate about like not just Clear for Men, but like I'm passionate about like every element of my life. Like I love my health, I love my fitness. I'm so grateful for like even being able to take my dog for a walk. Do you know what I mean? Like those things, I think, like you said, like bringing your whole to that, I just think is so important. Because I always say to a lot of people as well, like we only do have the one life. Like we got one life, and that is it. And I think like it is such a deep statement, but I think it puts things into perspective where like you gotta live for today. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's so important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think going back to what you mentioned about kind of the loneliness for a second as well, for anybody listening who feels the same way, men or women who are listening in and they're thinking, I feel quite lonely, I've gone through similar experiences. I was really high before COVID and then experienced a lot of lows, don't feel I can get myself out of it. What would you suggest in terms of strategies? How long did that real loneliness hit you?
I always say to everyone that like it never really, like for me, I'm very transparent about like my whole journey, and I think that like I still get experiences of loneliness. I still get that period of isolation. I still get that feeling where I don't know what I'm doing. And I've had experiences even a few months ago where I experienced a real low mood, like probably argue like it was just a very difficult time for me. And I genuinely did not know how to get myself out of it. And it's really hard. Like it's a very difficult, and like, I don't want to say that I have all the answers because I know that I don't, but I think the one thing that I've really like learned and taught myself, I suppose, is that there will always be light at the end of the tunnel, and it will always get better. Because if I cast myself back to every other time that has been difficult for me, I know that I've gotten through it, even when it doesn't feel like I can get through it right now. When I look back, I think that reminds me of like, oh yeah, do you know what? I can do it right now, and it's hard, but I can do it. And I think sometimes like we like, I know I certainly did. I tell myself limiting beliefs. I used to tell myself that I can't do something, or that I'm not good enough, or that I don't believe in myself. But I'm actually telling myself those things, and then eventually they become true because I'm telling myself the negativity is latching on. Whereas I'm actually trying to retrain myself to be a bit more like, no, I can do it. I just don't know how to do it yet, or I will get there. It's just a matter of when, not if. And I think that's really put me in a headspace where I feel so grateful for the journey itself rather than trying to focus on the destination. Because I used to say to myself, I'll be happy when I get here. And I realized a few months ago, if I do not stop and appreciate where I am now, I will not be happy then, because I'm not happy right now. And like, I think that was a big thing for me, because if I cast my mind back to where I was before, at that point where I was struggling and I kept saying I'll be happy when, that was a point where I would have been happy previously, if that makes sense. Like that would have been a point where like I've moved the goalpost essentially. And I think like the one thing that I would say is like, I think for me, what I found is learning more about who I am, learning more about like what my body tells me when I feel anxious, trying to remind myself that like there are people that we can talk to about it. There are people that understand. There are people that understand it. And I think just the more we like just normalize the conversation, like even someone listening right now who may feel like, because I find that like if I feel anxious, like I've become so used to saying to someone like, oh yeah, I feel quite anxious right now, and the
I do it
conversation,
all the time,
yeah,
all the time. Because it's as you say, you just get very comfortable with saying
mm,
it. And I don't even bat an eyelid really. I just,
no,
if I'm in a situation, I feel anxious right now. And I
yeah,
just do a little bit of a laugh. I probably look
yeah,
crazy because it is very normal for me to say it. And because if I don't, and it goes back to public speaking with me and the podcast hosting it as well, people wouldn't necessarily probably associate me and what I do with anxiety, for example, but I've always been anxious, to be perfectly honest. I think I used to be very, very introverted, a lot more extroverted now, but that's taken years and years. But I do still get nervous. It's just natural, and I think it
yeah.
shows you care.
Yeah, I agree exactly. It shows that you care. I think if you didn't care about it, like I think, like I always think about the things that I don't necessarily care about, you don't put as much effort into them. So like you care about yourself and you want yourself to feel like for me, like whenever I'm feeling anxious, I try and figure out because I never used to feel I never used to be an anxious person. I used to worry, I used to be an overthinker, but I never used to feel physical forms of anxiety, or I never used to know that this was anxiety right now taking over my body.
Yeah,
And so I'm learning again about my body because I think before I used to go through a period, going back to 2022, I had a time where I had gone into the bathroom, I'd locked the door, and I had this tight chest pain and a tingling sensation down my arm. And I'm 21 at this point, and I genuinely thought I was having a heart attack. So I'm panicking. It's getting worse. I'm losing my breath. I can't catch my breath. I'm really, really struggling. And I go to the hospital and they just say to me, everything physically is fine. Like, your bloods are fine, your x-rays are fine. Everything that you've said that was a problem is absolutely fine. So again, my head is like, no, it's not. There's something wrong. And I'm worrying about that then. But I've actually come to realize that like my body is my body is anxious for some reason, whether it's coffee, maybe makes me feel a bit anxious. But also like I think before I didn't really understand how to cope with that feeling of anxiety. And now I feel as though I do a few things to help with, especially my deep breathing. I find that like trying to grind myself is so important. I think the grinding routines are really important. Running, when I'm feeling anxious, when I'm feeling low mood, I think running really helps me with that. When like moving my body, because I find that a lot of people say that like if you like dance, like a lot of people dance when they feel a bit anxious, like getting that feeling. But
yeah,
also like someone told me before, and it's like if you have your two index fingers, and you put one in a clockwise rotation, and then try and do the other one in an anti-clockwise, trying to do that at the same time, your brain cannot do it. So your brain is focusing on trying to do that rather than the anxiety itself. And I think that can try and take away from. So there are so many different hacks that you can try and do to try and help ease that feeling of anxiousness. But I think the one thing I would say is like it will get better, even when it doesn't feel like it will, and that there is always support available. Because I've been speaking about my journey since 2020. I think I started really talking about it in 2022, 2023, and I was really nervous to start posting about it. And ever since I've started posting about it, I have had literally hundreds of people in comment sections on live streams, DMs, emails, reaching out and saying, thank you for talking about this because I feel anxious right now. Or like my friends feel more comfortable talking about it, or my family. And I think that just goes to show that like it is a conversation that is in the way between us feeling anxious and us getting that support. Because I think sometimes we feel so alone with it. But it's more common than we think it is. Like I think I think before I saw a statistic and it was saying about like 1 in 6 people experience some sort of mental health condition where it's anxiety or it's depression. And I think seeing those statistics is alarming, but it's also like I'm actually not alone in how I feel right now. So maybe I can talk to the well-being team at work or my friend and grab a coffee with them. And I think that's like, but it is really difficult. It is very difficult, but it's not. I think my brain, I think I've realized that like it's not impossible. And I think it's trying to like I'm trying to feed my brain positive ways of thinking of things. And like public speaking, for instance, I don't know if you ever used to feel like it, but that feeling of anxiousness or that feeling of messing up when you're about to go on stage, and it is daunting. I've like sort of replaced that feeling of nervousness and anxiousness with telling myself that I'm excited for it. Because the two, like someone said to me before, that like they can't coexist. So you can't have anxiety and excitement at the same time. So if you tell yourself you're excited for it rather than anxious for it, your body will feel excited rather than nervous, and therefore like your brain is almost like rewiring that experience to feel more positive. And that's what I feel like every time I do a public speaking talk now. Every time I do a talk, I tell myself, right, okay, I feel anxious right now. I can feel my heart pounding through my chest, and I do feel nervous, but I'm excited because I know right now that this talk could hopefully help people. And reframing it that way in my mind makes me have a really good talk, and it also helps me to calm my body down and slow down when I'm talking. It's so important.
Definitely. You've raised. No, carry
Sorry, go
on.
on.
What were you going to say?
I was just going to say that I think how we talk to ourselves is the most important thing. I used to speak to myself very negatively, and I used to not love myself. And I think when you don't love yourself, when you don't prioritize yourself, you think negatively about yourself in every aspect. You bring yourself down. And I think it's really important that we try and look at the things that we love about ourselves to start that process of loving ourselves and appreciating who we are and we're on our journey. Because everyone makes mistakes. I think there's this fear of like, we can't make mistakes, but everyone makes mistakes day to day. And I think we just need to like remind ourselves that it's okay to make a mistake sometimes. It's okay, if we've had a setback or we've made a mistake, like that's just part of the process. It's just reminding ourselves of that. Like we just need to be kind to ourselves and enjoy our journey a lot more, because I think if when I used to speak to myself quite negatively, I think it actually hindered me from doing a lot of things. I used to feel as though I couldn't do my public speaking. But then if I can't do my public speaking because I'm speaking to myself negatively, I can't help people. Or if I don't go live on social media because I'm speaking negatively about it and I don't think people like it, then I'm telling myself that live streams don't work because people think I'm annoying, or they don't want me to talk, or they don't want to be involved in it. When actually I went live yesterday on social media, and everyone's saying like, I absolutely love what you're doing. I love you. And I guess that reminder of like, oh, I am doing a good job. Like remind yourself of that as well, and yeah, it is difficult, but I think it's a lot of it comes down to how we talk about ourselves. So finding like 2 or 3 things that like we love about ourselves, that even first thing in the morning, just like, what is it that I like about myself today? Is it the way my hair looks, or is it the way that I don't know, anything. It could be literally anything. And like treating ourselves, and like I just think it's so important. Like how we speak to ourselves and how we look after ourselves, I think is fundamentally one of the most important things we can do, because we are our most important asset, full stop, in my opinion.
Absolutely. You serenaded the audience and me, so I guess it's time to end the podcast. We're done. I thought it was great, everything that you said. So I agree with everything you said. There's so many good strategies there as well. And I really believe, alongside what you mentioned about loving yourself, if I go back to my first public speaking engagement, I think the reason why, I mean, number one, it was anxiety I was feeling. So I get nervous about going on stage, but I'm a bit of a perfectionist. And going back to also understanding more about yourself in terms of
Yeah,
emotion. I know in myself, I love to practice. I love to be prepared. I am a bit of a perfectionist. I am a bit of a control freak as well. I can't lie. I do like to understand the situation, the scenario, the environment. I'm very much by the book in a lot of aspects in my life. I can be a bit of a rebel, with the podcast. I don't mind. The guests come on, they talk. And this is such a passion project for me. So I just absolutely love what I'm doing. Other
yeah,
areas of my life, I know that I need structure. So I've
yeah,
understood that about myself over the years. So going back to one of your very early points about, anger and sadness or happiness, only really knowing that growing up, I was very much in a similar situation. And then you go through life and you're just understanding more and more that actually it might look like I'm angry about a situation, but maybe I'm just fearful. Maybe I just don't, because I don't know
yeah,
the outcome. It's making me fearful. It's making me stressed. It's making me frightened for the
yeah,
future. And again, back to your earlier point about that purpose-driven loneliness, but then also because you're not sure the outcome, you're not sure where life's leading you. That's
yeah,
heightened your feelings and heightening the way you're perceiving the world around you. And actually, it's not all as it seems
no,
sometimes. Our brains fortunately and unfortunately can create certain scenarios, can create certain feelings in us that actually might not represent reality sometimes. And that's to protect ourselves. I know it and you know it. A lot of the time it's a protective mechanism. But we do have to take that step back and say, well, actually, if you're having a bad day, write it down. So what's happened that day? You've woken up, you've gone to work, you've come home for dinner, you spent time with family and friends, but you're still not happy. Write down 5 or 6 things that have happened that day and start to kind of, you don't need to journal, but just reflect. And I'm
Yeah.
such a big advocate for self-reflection, whether it's on
Yeah.
your business, whether it's on yourself. I do it weekly on the weekends. I actually really look forward to it now. Just sit down and just think about how everything's gone. So I love every point that you've made. And then also another point that you made, trying to remember it now. You said so many great things, but just really loving that point about loving yourself as well.
Yeah.
I'm exactly the same as you. I don't think I told myself I love myself till I was 25. It's such a sad thing when I look back, because I have photos of myself when I was younger and I just look at little Alex and I just know that she was this bright young thing, and I wish I would have said I love you more. So definitely anybody listening with what Louis and myself are saying, get yourself in front of the mirror, give yourself a high five, tell yourself I love you. Even if you don't feel it, even if you wake
Yeah.
up, I just don't want to tell myself I love myself. Do it anyway, because you have to spend the rest of your life with yourself. It's you and you. That is it. You can't shimmy outside of your body at all. So no matter who you're with, you have to go home with yourself, wake up with yourself. So this is it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. And I actually read a book probably last year, I think it was. And I was struggling a little bit with burnout and trying to balance everything. And I think when I started my business, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And to be honest with you, I still don't. Every day I wake up with this thing of like, I don't
Likewise.
know what I'm doing. I'm just going with it. And I'm just gonna see what happens. But every day I wake up with this excitement of I'm going to try no matter what. And I read a book last year called The Chimp Paradox, and I don't know if you've ever
I know
read
the
it.
one. I haven't read
Yeah,
it, but I know it.
it is honestly such an incredible book because it breaks down your brain into 3 components. So your chimp, which is your almost like when you act irrationally, you act illogically. That comes down to your chimp hijacking your brain. You've got your human in your chimp, which is the person with logic, and then your computer then, which stores all of your memories and whatnot. And an example, like if you're driving in a car and someone cuts you up or pulls out in front of you, sometimes our initial reaction is to be like, oh, what are you doing? And like, this frustrating thing. But what the book sort of goes into detail about is the fact that like it's the chimp that wants that moment to hijack your brain to be angry, and that 15-second interaction can actually have an impact on the rest of our day. Like I found that before, like something small's happened in my morning and the rest of my day's been thrown off. Whereas now I'm looking at things a lot differently. And that book really put a lot into perspective for me, I found. So that book really helped me with like understanding my brain, understanding when I'm acting, which sounds weird, I know, but like using my human in the brain and using the chimp that's taking over and hijacking. That book really helped me. And I think it's just, like you said, like I think like loving ourselves is so important. It can, like you said as well, like, you look back at, I think I speak to a lot of people about it and they look back to photos of themselves and they say things like, oh, I wish I told myself I loved myself when I was younger. And a lot of people always say like things like, oh, look at me when I was there. Like, look at me when I was there. Look at how I used to look. But it's actually that thing of like, in that moment, and even right now, like for example, like if I use myself as an example, I think when I used to be in the gym all the time, when I was a few years younger, I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm looking the healthiest I've ever been. I feel great. If I was to look at those photos right now, I would still be like, I look amazing there. I look really, really good there. But now I'm telling myself like, no, I still look good today though. I still look good today, and like I still love myself. Whereas I think sometimes we're not like so easy to be like, oh, I don't look good right now. I don't look good right. And we can, and again, we speak quite negatively about ourselves, but then in a couple of years' time, we look back and realize how amazing we did really look, in any aspect of who we were. I just think it's so important to speak to ourselves with love and kindness, like we are our own best friends, because we are. And you said it's such an important point as well. Like we are we live with ourselves for the rest of our lives. It's only us in our head. And like 80% of the voice that we hear every single day is our own. So it's a really, really important point to try our best to make it a positive place to be. And that's when I think coming in into things like thinking positively, like, like trying to consume things that can really help us think more positively. I think a lot of books have really helped me with that, because I know how hard it is to think positively when you're in a bad headspace. I've had times before where like I've literally woken up and I've not wanted to get out of bed. Like it's been tough, and burnout is real. Like it's really, really hard. It is having you have to be really kind to yourself, and like sometimes you just need that reminder. So I don't know if anyone needs it right now, but like if you're feeling stressed and burnt out, it may be time to actually just take a step back and pause from whatever it is that's causing you to feel that way, and just take a moment for you, whether it is having a weekend where you are just, I don't know, just doing something for you for the weekend, taking your mind off something that is causing you to feel stressed and worked out, because I know firsthand how hard, when I'm running my business and I feel like I can't take time off because my business is too busy. If I don't take time off, my business does not grow because I'm not putting enough into me. And I think I've realized that I have to put time into myself, and I'm only one person. Therefore, I need to be kinder to myself and just put more energy into me. And I think I've changed the way I like consume content, whether it's through books and audiobooks, and like trying to keep myself in that positive headspace, and like thinking about how I can keep myself positive, thinking about gratitude, thinking about ways to improve myself slowly and sustainably as well. I think sometimes I used to do it before I planned. I do all these things a day and it feels so good, and I feel great. But because it's not sustainable over a period of time, I don't end up keeping to it. And then I feel bad about myself for not sticking to those things. And then therefore you feel bad about yourself. And that can, again, cause that spiral to talk negatively towards yourself. So I think it's just like figuring out what it is that makes you happy, doing more of it. And I know that is so much easier said than done. But I think from someone who has struggled a lot and someone who has a very busy schedule, I know full well that like the three things that I gotta do really is I need to stop comparing myself to anyone else's journey, because I think that ultimately takes away from anything that we're trying to achieve or do. It hinders what anything that we've done. Like I'll give an example. Like if I was to say like, oh, Clear for Men has done this amazing thing, and then I go online and I see someone else and they've done something else that's amazing, it completely takes away from what I've just done. And my mind is starting to think like, oh yeah, but I haven't done that yet. And then all of a sudden, that thing I've just done that just took me so long to do, it's out the window. Now I've moved the goalpost. It's all about celebrating where we are right now. And I think like we were saying, like I think it's all about not comparing ourselves to anyone else, because I think that can have such a negative impact on us. I think speaking to ourselves with love and kindness, and just remembering that it is a journey, and it is a tough journey, but it's a journey. And I think that's the whole point. Like I always say to people, especially when I'm on live streams as well, I always say like the lows are hard, the lows are difficult, and I know that. Someone said to me before, it's kind of like what's it called? Is it an ECG where you get the pulse of the heart rate, the heartbeat where it goes up and down and up and down? Is that what it's called?
Possibly.
ECG? I think so. I don't. Anyway, the thing the thing that
Keep
takes your
going.
pulse and it goes up and down all the time. That's kind of like there will always be times where we don't feel the greatest, but they will always last forever. And the highs, appreciate them as much as you can and be grateful for them as well. I think it is so hard, like it is so difficult. But I think the one thing that's helped me on my journey is reminding myself of that all the time, because during those low moments, I know how easy it is to feel like to talk negatively about ourselves, and I know how hard it can be to see that. But I promise you, it really is there. And I think a lot of it starts with actually making that first step and having a conversation with someone. And that's why I'm such an advocate for like talking and reaching out, because when I feel burnt out and I'm isolated and I'm lonely and I feel I'm really struggling, I realize that actually comes from a lot of I'm holding a lot in and I'm not letting anything out. And that I can physically feel that pain on my body, on my chest, in my head, on my shoulders. I'm so tense. Letting it out is so important. If you keep it in, it's going to get bottled up. It's so hard. So you can physically feel that pain. And so yeah, like I'm a huge advocate for like talking about it at your own pace, whatever works best for you. Sometimes people aren't always comfortable talking right away, and I'm fully aware of that. And I think it's like important to go at the pace that works right for you. It's just a matter of just putting yourself in a position where you've got someone to talk to, and those light conversations are starting around how we feel. I think is so important, because they could hopefully lead to talking more openly about how we're feeling when we feel ready to.
I really love going back to what you mentioned about the book. It's almost like playing devil's advocate a little bit. So you have two sides of the coin. You're trying to compartmentalize different situations to yourself, the good and the bad. What should I do in different types of scenarios? But then again, going back to what we said earlier on, knowing yourself, knowing how your emotions work internally. But you also mentioned something really important at the end. And it reminded me of working out what are your values. So yourself with your business, that can really play a part in how you approach each day, the people you
Yeah,
speak to, the conversations you have, the people that you surround yourself with, and that can have such a lasting impact as well. But
yeah,
altogether, we've mentioned just the different types of strategies for anybody listening, just having that sounding board. If you don't have that sounding board, starting with yourself. I think that's
yeah,
what I've come to the conclusion of today, just really doing the inner work. And as you say, that extends beyond just the conversations you have, but the podcasts you listen to, the books that you read, the material that you're reading online, what you're viewing online on social media. Everybody is inundated with just streams and streams, thousands of pieces of content every single day. So it's really being present and aware of that and
yeah,
the impact it can have on yourself. But the last thing I wanted to say to you was, and something that you mentioned to me about your brand is, even though the brand is for men, you have had a lot of women buy the products for their partners. And I just wanted to raise that point because I think when we're talking about mental health, we will have female and male listeners, but also
yes.
for men, it's nice to know that women are backing them as well.
Yeah, and that's why I always say to people, I do get a lot of people that say to me, how come you centered it around men and not everyone? And I always say that like the whole message that I say is literally for everyone. The reason why I put emphasis more on men and male mental health is because of the stigma that is attached with that. But everything that
Yeah.
I always say, Egg said, is around everyone's mental health and looking after ourselves. I think it is so important. Like you said,
Mhm.
that important, like that thing of like, I get so many mothers or wives, partners, do you know what I mean? And they'll support the mission, or they'll send my content to their partner or the men in their life and remind them like, oh yeah, this person's talking about this, by the way, and like it's just a reminder that you're not alone. And they'll support the brand and they'll purchase for their partner, and they almost like, I find that a lot of people actually, they take 5 together. So they actually will use the cleanser and have that moment for themselves as a couple to
I
take
love
5.
that.
Yeah, and I really like that as well. And I think it makes me realize like, oh, this is. I always say to people like, it is a reminder for you to take 5, but it also, when it's viewed like that, whereas like couples are taking 5 themselves, it's time for you to as well. But it's also that it's take 5 to start a conversation as well. Like I think that's the, like, people are using it to pause and prioritize themselves, which is so important. But I think again, it's that, let's take 5 right now and let's talk about our day and like how is things going, and like how can we make tomorrow better, and what is it that's on your mind. And like when people say that to me, I really, it makes me feel really proud, because even though it is targeted towards men, I think it's so nice to see that everyone is getting involved in the mission that we're on, because mental health is so crucial. It's so important. And I feel as though more needs to be done to talk about it. And like you said, look, we are inundated with so much content nowadays. It can be hard to listen to what's right and what's wrong. It can be really overwhelming. And that's why I try my best to be a very positive role model, in a sense of just like, it will be, we can do this, and reminding people that they're not alone, and like there is support, and that almost like being that person that when you go on your phone and I pop up, and not in an arrogant way, like I want to be that person that when you see me, I'm going to have this positive mind, positive sort of mantra, or this positive reminder for you that's going to really uplift you and make you feel good about maybe yourself or your day, or give yourself a bit of credit for how far you've come, because we're doing incredible things. You know what I mean? Like we are doing so many incredible things. I just don't think we quite realize how good we are, and how well we're doing as people. And I think sometimes it's important to just literally take a step back and look at how far you've come this year. And this year has been, well, we're almost 8 months into this year. We're almost finished. Well, almost 9 months into this year, which is crazy.
No, we're not
But
finished. The summer, it's
I
only
know.
the end of summer. Come on.
I know. It's crazy. But it's that thing of like how far you've come in the past 8 or 9 months of just this year alone. And then look at the past 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and where you are. You've got to give yourself credit where credit is due. You're doing a good thing, you're doing a good job. And I just think it's so important to talk about and put ourselves in a way where we can we can sort of change our perspective on ourselves as well, and realize that we are doing a really good job. I think a lot of it comes down to we do unfortunately compare ourselves to a lot of people. And I think like I'm certainly someone, like I've struggled a lot with my own journey, and I've burnt myself out quite a lot. I've actually looked at a lot of people's journey and compared it to my own, and it's made me feel really negative towards my own journey, feel like I'm not doing enough. And then I feel as though my whole day has to be like this way or it's a failure. Like I could do 15 things today, but if I don't do 16 if I don't do 16 out of 16 and I've only done 15 out of 16, then today's a failure. Putting so much pressure on ourselves, like just it's that thing of like, don't put so much pressure on yourself and just focus on doing what it is for you that makes you happy and follow your own journey, not anyone else's. And I think that is like one piece of advice I followed for myself that has really helped me to not compare myself and almost like have a positive start to my day, I suppose, because it's so easy. And like you said, and I saw a post the other day and it was like, we consume content all the time, whether we're like eating breakfast or having our lunch or going for a walk or on the tube. And the difference between opening our phone and looking at a piece of content on the tube and then exiting the tube is the difference between us feeling good and bad sometimes, because we can compare ourselves and feel like, oh, I'm not doing enough. And we feel this state of panic because we're rushing. But there is no timeline. Like, I think that's the thing. Like, there's no set timeline on when we've got to do things. We just got to do it at our own pace when we're ready in our lives. So yeah, I know it's overwhelming with the content aspect, but I think it's important to focus on you and consume the things that are right for you and your own well-being.
I knew that I wanted to help people. I knew I wanted to have a mission and a purpose behind what I was doing. And I feel as though that has pulled me through all of the time, all the challenging times, I suppose. So the times where I feel as though like I don't know whether I'm good at what I do, feeling like I need to give up because I'm not good at it. I feel as though having the purpose behind it has been really important for me as a solo founder in particular. And one thing that I've noticed is like it is a lonely journey at times. Like I do feel lonely, and I feel as though if you allow yourself to feel lonely, as in by like not talking to people about it and like reaching out to other founders who can sort of speak to you I suppose because they've experienced it, if they've experienced what you're going through, or they're a bit further ahead than you, actually just chatting to them about how you feel, I think really helps take the weight off my shoulders, because I don't know what I'm doing every day. And I think not having someone to bounce ideas off can be really overwhelming. And I get to a point where I wake up every morning and I'm just like, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing today, or I overthink what I need to do day to day. And sometimes it can be almost a little bit, I wouldn't say monotonous, but I suppose it's the consistency of the things that are actually working, that are moving the needle, that I need to do every day. And sometimes my mind is telling me, yeah, but you need to be doing something else. So for instance, if I'm creating content and I'm spending 4, 5, 6 hours on a day making content, then I'm interacting with other people on LinkedIn or TikTok or Instagram, or then I'm going live on social media. Like my whole premise behind it is like, they're the things that are driving the business. That's what's driving the PR. That's what's driving the sales. That's what's driving awareness of what I do and why I do it, growing my personal brand, etc. But there's something in my mind that literally says to me, like, you should be doing more. Like, why are you not doing these collaborations? Why are you not doing influencer marketing? Like, and in my head, I'm just thinking like, I can't focus on all these things because otherwise it will just be a bit too much for me right now. And in my head, what I've come to realize is it is lonely and it's hard, but something that's helped me the most is learning about how I work as a person. So I find that sometimes first thing in the morning, I do find that I'm a little bit like, okay, I can get a few things done. So I'll get like maybe some admin tasks done first thing in the morning, like some quick ticks, get them off done. And I'll spend mid-morning making content. And then in the evening, then that's my time to go live. And I just sort of have that little bit of a structure to my day. Every day, I try my best to read 30 minutes a day on a book that can potentially help me with my business and looking at different ways to grow my business, whether it is through my own mindset or whether it is through actual strategies that can really like help be implemented. I think not from just like a skincare brand perspective, but like a business perspective, like from every business. So I'm currently reading a book at the moment called The E-Myth. And it talks a lot about how you want to build a business
I've read it.
that is,
Really,
it's
really
good, isn't it?
Yeah, really good.
I'm on like chapter 12, I think it is. And it's talking about every system that like basically trying to create your business with the systems in place so that it can run without you.
Yeah.
And if you were to copy it tomorrow, you could franchise it into like 5,000 other businesses. And
Yeah.
I really like the way of thinking around that, because it's made me think like, oh yeah, I don't want to be in a position where I don't want to have no systems in place when I do start bringing on employees, because I don't want it to become stressful, or I want it to be like a genuine way of doing things. And it's completely changed the way, and I've only been reading it for about 2 weeks, but it's completely changed the way I look at how I want to operate my business and how I want to be focusing on growing it rather than in it. And things that are helping me on the business is creating content that's generating awareness and going live that's helping me raise awareness, because that's pushing my content, being on podcast, on the business, like all these different things that are helping me push on the business, rather than focusing on things that are in the business that aren't necessarily moving the needle. And I end up spending so much time in my day focusing on, like I've done it before, where I've literally spent the day focusing on tiny tasks on tweaking the website or tweaking whatever, and it's not necessary. Like it is, but like I spend hours on it, and then I feel overwhelmed because I got so many things that I need to do. So then it means that I don't go live on social media. So it means that I don't create content. The things that are driving the business forward, I then put to the back seat, and I don't know why I do that. And I think that actually comes down to my mind is telling me you need to be doing more than what you're doing right now as a founder, otherwise you're going to fail. And again, it's that comparison thing where you're comparing yourself to someone else's journey. And I need to remind myself that we're all doing different things, and all we're seeing from other people is the highlight reel. So we need to like try and I think that's really like spoken to me of like, yeah, systems. That's what people are talking about when they're on about creating systems. That's what, it's just completely changed my perception of actually building a brand, because it is tough. But I also think like, I want to grow my personal brand. I want to have a book. I want to do all these things. I'm thinking that is possible. I need to build the systems in place though to get the brand to where it is, to where it needs to be in order for that to happen, because I can't do it by myself.
I love that. And for anybody listening who would like to read the book, it is called The E-Myth, and it's why most small businesses don't work and what to do about it. It's by Michael E. Gerber. Fantastic book. Really glad you're reading it, because I have a few friends who have also read the book who have their own businesses, because as Louis said, solo founder, I'm the same as well. And we're constantly looking for ways to improve and innovate, but actually it's taking yourself out of the business, not working in it all the time, working on the business. And as you say, it's putting those systems in place that mean if you were to, touch wood, pass away tomorrow, somebody else could take over the business. That's exactly what it says in the book. So it's a fantastic read. There's so many different books out there. I mentioned one on another episode of this podcast, which was just talking about people and different types of people. And it goes back to having empathy and compassion for others, because everybody's going through something differently. We all have challenges, and it's just about humanizing the approach that you have as well. So I really advocate for that. But as you say, with the strategies in place as well, doing what's right for you and not comparing yourself to others, as you say so much. We're all on our own journey. We all have our own processes. Social media, as you say, if creating content, going on live is your forte, and that's what's really going to help push your brand and push your business to the next step. Focus on that, because then everything else will fall into place without you even having to do too much, hopefully. So it's working out what's right for you. And there was something else that I wanted to pull out, but I think you mentioned it. I think you just mentioned, it's just working out what's right for you, what's going to really help your business go into the next phase. And not comparing to others is definitely a crucial one. We all do it. I do it. Compare myself to the big and fantastic public speakers and think, I want to be on a TED stage, for example. I've done TEDx. I want to do TED. I know I do. That's the goal that I want to reach. But it's enjoying the process along the way, enjoying the journey.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
But I think that was the point I wanted to talk about. Personal brand is so important for founders now, and I'm really glad you pulled that out, because having a book or a podcast or being on podcast, doing public speaking, it really lifts the lid on you as a founder and then your business, so people can relate, because it's all about relatability now.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the connection that you have when you have like a personal brand, I think is huge. Like I find like even yesterday, someone commented, so someone messaged me yesterday on Instagram and was like, hey, like love what you're doing, like love this brand and it's incredible. And they actually like almost gave me a little bit of advice in terms of like how the content. So for context, I've started creating a new series on social media, and it's called like Failing My Way to Building the Best Skincare Brand in the World. And I want it to be a positive. It's like a positive sort of series around how like failures don't mean we are failures, but they push us closer to where we want to be. That's kind of the premise behind the series. And this woman messaged me and she was like, I love what you're doing. She's like, and I think what you're doing is incredible. She's like, but actually, like, I have this advice for it, you know. And I looked at her, I thought, do you know what, like, this is really good advice. And I just thought, like, thank you so much. And like, in my head, I'm just thinking like, this is also another business owner, and there's great connection there. And like I said, the personal, I always think back to like, I also read another book from Simon Sinek, The Start With Why. I don't know if you've ever read that, but that is such
I know
a
the
good
book. I haven't read it, but Simon
Yeah.
is a fantastic author. He's got a couple of
Yeah.
different books.
It's unbelievable. And like, that was such a good book for me to read. He read that when I was struggling a lot with my business. And it sort of led me back to that mission of like, people don't buy what you do. They will support you as a person because they like you and the reason why you're doing
and then
it.
they buy off you.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just like, that is it. Like, I'm growing my personal brand to be that person that's like a positive role model, showing positivity, showing the behind the scenes of a business and how to run it and how it's difficult sometimes. But like I said, with that new series that I'm doing, like showing that failure doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a bad thing to fail, or it's not a bad thing to have setbacks. Embrace them because they actually lead you to where you're going to be. And like, I think back to all the job interviews that I've had and I've never got the job, or I think back to all the times I've messed up on campaigns and it never did anything at all. Anything that I might have messed up on, like not having a launch strategy, all these different things. And I'm just like, it's okay to have like, all of those failures I've learned from. And I know that one day my brand will be a big brand. I know it'll be worldwide, and I'm manifesting that, and I'm telling myself that will happen so I can visualize it and see it. And a lot of that comes down to my personal brand. And I think growing that has been like such a big step for me. And this year in particular, I've really enhanced like LinkedIn, trying to use it as much as possible. Like, I made it a New Year's resolution this year to be like, try and post every day on that platform. Same on TikTok as well, like trying to post as much as I can on that platform, showing people like the behind the scenes of it, but also then like, again, it's like a new way into my brand so people can see the mission of why I do it, or what I'm doing, or what I've learned, or the mistakes I've made. And I think that's something that personal brands give. You know, it's almost like, who is Louis Watkins, you know, outside of Clear for Men? Kind of that thing of like, if you were to put like Stephen Bartlett, I don't know half the companies that Stephen owns or does or operates. I just know him. And I think that's the thing that I think people have, like, I think that's why people say to me like, build a personal brand, build it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, now I see why it's so important.
Do you want to talk about your little trip to Downing Street whilst we're on this topic? Because I think that's very fantastic to talk about. But also for anybody listening that does want to follow along with Louis' journey, I will be putting all of the links into the show notes and the recommendations for the books as well, because there's been a couple throughout.
Yeah. So I went to Downing Street in July, so 1st of July. I was invited. So I applied for the Small Awards. So it's basically like a chance for small business owners to like apply for awards, but also like a great way to like show the recognition that a lot of small businesses deserve. I think it's incredible. Like, genuinely such an incredible initiative that they're doing.
Yeah.
And I applied for that. I think I applied for it early, I think it was January, that I applied. And there was an awards evening then. So I got shortlisted. I didn't win, but I got shortlisted in the May, I think it was. It might have been just before then. So I came along to this event in London. It was really, really nice, like a black tie event. It was lovely. And went there for the evening, met so many amazing people. And then a couple of weeks later, they emailed everyone who was shortlisted and emailed everyone who won and was like, we're doing a get together in Downing Street if you would like to join along and, you know, meet the Chancellor of the Exchequer and just see everyone again and you know, and just be a nice little get together and almost like a nice little celebratory thing.
It's
even
fantastic.
If you didn't win.
It's recognition.
Yeah. Recognition, exactly. And I think it was like, and again, I think looking at the Downing Street thing, I was there and I was getting my photos taken and I just thought, this is what I need to remember when I'm struggling, is the fact that these opportunities do not come often.
It's the little moments.
And like, It's the little moments, yeah. And it's so easy to forget our journey. And I remember being in that room and just thinking like, yes, this is what I need to, I don't want to be thinking of, yeah, but what's next, what's next, what's next, and moving the goalpost. This is what I literally wanted to have. And like being in Downing Street or going on BBC Radio Wales or like all these things, they're things that I manifested or told myself I want to try and do. When I first started, I didn't, and my thing was like, I want to enjoy it right now. Because it's so easy to be like, yeah, but what's next? Like, you know, and like, that's good. Yeah, but what about the business? And I was like, no, I'm enjoying this. And I think going there really put things into perspective for me and has allowed me to really slow down and appreciate where I am. Because it's a really cool opportunity to go there.
It's
So, yeah.
absolutely fantastic. I think the opportunity, and it goes back to, I'm such a big advocate for networking. So when you're a solo founder, sometimes that can be quite difficult to meet like-minded people. You obviously have your family and friends, which are a great support system, but you do need people outside of that, whether online or in person, who you can bounce ideas off when you're in the midst of growing your business, going back to kind of working more on it, not in it all the time. That
Yeah.
extends beyond to actually who you talk to. Opportunities like that to be around other founders as well, and it puts you in the mental state to think, well, I can do this because I've achieved so much. Now it is on to the next thing. But I really love that point that you made, and I often remind myself of it as well. Try and be present and in the moment as much as possible whenever you're experiencing the highs, experiencing the lows, because if you're constantly thinking about what's next, you really lose sight of how much you've achieved. So it really enjoy the moment for anybody listening who is a new solo founder or aspiring, thinking of starting your own business, not quite there yet, but you're listening with the intention that you might. Just listen to what Louis said, definitely taking that step back and really experience the highs, but definitely just be in the moment.
There are 2 films that I would recommend as well. I don't know if you've ever watched It.
No, who is it by?
So I'm not sure who it's by, but It is a film that is
Is
all
that what we
about
say
Nike.
now, or is it who produced it or something like that? I
Yeah,
don't
I
watch
don't know.
films. I'm terrible for it. I went to the
such a
cinema.
good-
I went to the cinema for the first time in years a couple of weeks ago to watch Jurassic Park. Because obviously I grew up with the original, so I had to go and see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic. The child in me just loves dinosaurs.
Yeah, I love that. That's cool. That is very cool. I love that.
But I was only going to say, it's just little things like that, as we say with strategies, finding hobbies, doing things outside of work, pop to the cinema for a few hours or go on a walk. It's take yourself
It's
away,
surprising
even
how much it
though
can do for you.
it's surprising. And also my most creative ideas sometimes come from those walks, from going to the cinema, switching off. My mind then comes back on halfway through and it's telling me something which I wouldn't have thought about. So it's in the silent moments, I find. And I used to hate silence a lot. It made me quite uncomfortable. But nowadays I really look for those moments.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Especially when things can be so chaotic.
Yeah. In the brain.
100%.
My brain's just always on, always. Never switches off.
Yeah.
So I definitely look for just an hour or 2 where I can stop. But going back to the recommendations.
Yeah, sorry. So that film, it talks about, and I think again, it's that uncertainty, but it talks about Nike, and it talks about how Nike was literally on the verge of failing. Basically.
Right, okay, yep. Nike, yeah.
Yeah, it was all about, it was literally on the verge of not collapsing, but it was like, if this one thing didn't work, it was pretty much game over for Nike. And their whole mission was to sign Michael Jordan to Nike, and he wanted to go to Converse and Adidas, and he was never going to go to Nike. And this guy just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And you watch it, and it's such an inspirational film. It's quite funny as well.
Interesting.
But it is honestly, yeah, it's a very inspirational. It's just that film. It's just a thing of like, just don't give up and literally just back yourself regardless, because you really don't know. You don't know if it'll pay off, but you like it could make you propel. Like you're talking. I mean, you look at Nike now, and just the Air Jordan brand alone generates millions. Just the Air Jordan brand alone, and they were, it's unbelievable.
I mean, their slogan is "Just do it."
Yeah.
I'm sure I know. So it goes back to what you say, just do it, because that's what their slogan is. I mean, they also have a book which journeys and chronicles the brand. I haven't read it. I am meaning to, because I work with a lot of retail and fashion brands anyway for cyber. So I just love the industry. I think it's one of the most exciting. It's constantly evolving. But what is the other recommendation you had too?
Films, yeah, The Pursuit of Happiness. I think everyone
Yes.
should watch that regardless whether you're a business owner or not. I think that is like that thing of like, it really put things into perspective for me. I watched it a few weeks ago. It's quite emotional, I found, but someone who just did not give up regardless of what was going on in his life. Like everything in his life was falling apart, but he kept going, and then he saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that's kind of, again, that thing of like, even when you're faced in a moment of adversity, even when you're struggling, even when it feels like there's nothing that you think could possibly go right, it will go right. It's just a matter of when. And it's films like that or books like that and surrounding yourself with people like that that will keep you going even when it feels like you're down and out. Because I've built a network of people that I would genuinely say are some of my closest friends now, which is so nice to say, of people who just are so uplifting and really, really inspire me to be a better person as well. Not just a better business person, but just a better person in general. And yeah, that's definitely a good recommendation. 100% really good.
I know. I definitely. It's with Will Smith, right?
Will Smith, yeah.
Pursuit of Happiness. I watched that a few years ago, and no spoilers, but there's a few scenes that, yes, are very emotional. I will talk about it with you, Louis, after the podcast, because there's one in particular, but a very, very good film. I think there's a couple of films I've watched over the years that have nothing to do with my industry, but they've really touched me. Because again, it goes back to the human to human empathy,
Of course,
emotions. So it's interesting. And I always find as founders, or even just as leaders, whether you're aspiring or whether you're on your way, we're constantly having to not necessarily put ourselves in other people's shoes, but we are really having to lead the way for others, find solutions, be problem solvers. At the same time, we don't want to micromanage. We want people to find their own solutions, become future leaders that they want to be. So we're having to think about the business, the company that we're with, the people. So there's a lot of dynamics that are going on, and it's definitely one of Louis' earlier points about understanding yourself and understanding your values and who you are will really help drive the way, I believe.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think that comes to the end of this episode. So many recommendations. I will put the books in, the films. You can follow along with Louis. I'll tag him in the show notes, the strategies relating to being a little bit more vulnerable, not being afraid to talk about mental health, figuring out who you are as a person. But I think the one key thing to draw from this episode is enjoying the journey, enjoying the process. You're not going to succeed at every stage of life. There will be astronomical failures, there will be extreme highs, there will be some lows, but ultimately it's your journey. For anybody listening, it's really your journey to do with it what you will, become the person that you want to be, and enjoy it. I know that's easier said than done, and we said that throughout, but enjoy it.
It's true. You have to enjoy it.
Any last words for anyone?
I think the one thing is like reach out to as many people as possible. I think so many people have told me like, just send that networking, send that connection request on LinkedIn, like ask people, how they do things. Like literally, I'll put it into perspective. I really was like just struggling with like the thought of like, I don't know how I get myself onto marketplaces, or I don't know how I do any of this. And I saw a post that a woman put on LinkedIn about how she exited her business, a skincare brand. And I just said to her, like, love what you're doing. Is there any chance that me and you can have a quick call and just chat to you? And she's like, yeah, let's do it. And we ended up speaking. And then a few weeks later, she reached out to me and was like, hi, Louis, I'm close with the people at Superdrug. Do you want me to put a word in about you maybe going on the marketplace for Superdrug? And then a few weeks later, before you know it, I've got connections with Superdrug, and I'm on the marketplace. And that literally started from one connection, one comment on someone's post. And I just think, like, don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to talk about it. It's lonely, but there are so many people that are in the same position that can literally, honestly, so many, I think founders, like, honestly, they will help you, because I just think it's so important to help each other out, because it is such a lonely journey. And it doesn't matter whether you're in the same, I'm very big on like collaboration, not competition. Like I don't look at another skincare brand as like, oh, there's a competitor. I look at it as like, oh, like I love what you're doing. Like, do you know what I mean? Like having that collaboration feeling rather than turning it into like, how can we be better than them? I just think like, how can we do better as brands kind of thing? Do you know what I mean?
Amazing. And I keep saying it, but I want the guests to come back later on, and maybe we'll do a QA live with an audience 100%. And they'll be able to shoot questions out. But it will be Fantastic to see your journey in the next 6 to 12 months. As Louis said, he's very much online, very much present. If you do have any questions that you want to ask him, you can. He's always open to feedback, and it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on today. I think, as I say, mental health is cool. It's cool to be vulnerable. We need to talk about it more, and I think this episode is really going to resonate with so many people that listen in. So thank you very much. That is Louis Watkins, the CEO and founder of Clear for Men. I will see you all very, very soon. Bye.